You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hey there, welcome to episode 270 of the Soul Forge podcast.
Welcome to the Soul Forge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Shawn as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soul Forge.
Well, gang, looks like it's another solo episode of Soul Forge. It hasn't really been one of those for quite a while. Had a lot of guests last week. Well, not even last week. There was no episode last week, but the week before was a repeat of a 5 years ago kind of Thanksgiving episode. It wasn't Thanksgiving for us in Canada, but it was for the Americans. So, got to represent everybody. So what are we talking about this week? Just a bunch of random things, updates and ideas and thoughts that I've been having. As I'm recording this, it's December 6th, which is my son Bishop's 17th birthday. Holy crap, he's getting up there now, isn't he? But of course this comes out on December 8th, but that's neither here nor there, because who knows when you'll be listening to this. Could be 20 years from now. So anyway, what's been going on? This week I'm on holidays. No reason in particular. I just had to pick holidays, and this week was available, and it's the closest that I could get to having Christmas off because of my seniority. I'm still not up there yet, so here we are. I'm off this week. Yay, good for me. Let's see. I wrote down a list here of a few things that I wanted to talk to you about. Nothing in particular, nothing too exciting, but some of it's spectacular, and you're going to love it because, why not? Kirstie Alley just died the other day. She was 71 years old. She played Saavik in 1982's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Permission to speak candidly, sir.
Granted.
There was no way to win.
How we deal with death is at least as important as how we deal with life, wouldn't you say?
As I indicated, Admiral, that thought had not occurred to me.
Well, now you have something new to think about. Carry on.
Saavik, take the con.
We are assembled here today to pay final respects to our honored dead.
Commander Uhura, this is Lieutenant Saavik. We're all right. Please stand by. Out.
And of course, everybody knows her from Cheers. She played Rebecca. But why are we talking about celebrity deaths? Because I've been contemplating something over the last few weeks. And what might that be, pray tell? Well, that might be a return to the Rusted Robot podcast.
Hi. This is Admiral Adama.
My name's Robert J. Sawyer.
This is Cena Grace.
Hey, this is Stephen Amell.
Hey, this is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek.
I'm hanging with Shawn and Bridget. They're telling all about general geekery.
And you are listening to the Rusted
Robot
Podcast.
The #1 rated robot-related podcast
in Northern Ontario.
You should be following them on Twitter.
Keep listening.
Don't forget to follow them on Twitter.
Subscribe on iTunes.
TheRustedRobot.podbean.com.
The Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it.
Rusted Robot.
As many of you will know, I hosted The Rusted Robot from January of 2014 to April of 2021. Had various guest hosts, solo episodes, and it was basically a This Week in Pop Culture type podcast. We talked about casting news, celebrity deaths. What else did we talk about? We did trailer reviews for all the new movies that were coming out. Sometimes we reviewed a movie or a specific episode. I talked about robots, of course. You never knew what was going to happen on the Rusted Robot podcast. And I've been missing it. It was freeing because it did take a lot of time and energy. It tried to be an hour-long episode that came out every Sunday, And of course, recorded it usually on a Saturday, and then it would take hours and hours to edit and upload and put in all the promo clips and what else? Just sound effects and trailers and you name it. And of course, as you know, I had to shut the podcast down because before we got on Spotify and stuff, I had put in songs and stuff, and that was not allowed apparently. So the algorithms kept flagging me for that, and the Podbean website that hosted the podcast actually shut me down twice, and if they were going to shut me down a third time, then they would have just closed the account altogether. So what did I do? I closed it down myself with the final episode, 331. So if I do go ahead and reboot, relaunch, reimagine Rusted Robot podcast, of course it'll start with episode 332, and a lot of those episodes are actually on YouTube. So you could still listen to some of the older ones, I think starting with episode 154. So yeah, that's a thing. So it wouldn't happen at least until the spring. I still got to think about it. And it might only be in every couple weeks? Every 2 weeks. Episode type show for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. It won't be every single week. It won't be an hour. It'll be random. Or maybe it won't be. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But I've got all the promos and the celebrity voice clips and all kinds of stuff, so I could just relaunch the thing. And it's something that's been on my mind. What do you guys think? Should I relaunch Rusted Robot Podcast? And then I'd have 4 podcasts. You know, this one, Soul Forge, and Rusted Robot, and my 2 with the British guys. There's the Epsilon 3, where we review an episode of Babylon 5 every week, and Cosmic Pizza Podcast, where it's all very random and you never know what's going to be the topic. So there we go. That's the idea. Another iteration of Rusted Robot Podcast. Got the logo and all the things that I need. I just have to actually figure out if I'm going to do it or not. And speaking of podcasts, why don't we play a promo for another podcast right here on the ESO Network?
Drew Leiter here, inviting you to join Cletus Jacobs and I as we journey into a new era of the DC Universe, Dawn of the DC. Join us each week as we review comics, television, and movies. There might even be a surprise guest or 2 along the way. Thanks for your continued support, and we look forward to talking more DC with you.
And that's the thing. Would I want Rusted Robot Podcast to be on the ESO network again? It was before. Would I want this new version of it to be there? Not sure. And I need a co-host, of course. I've got a few people in mind and just have to work out some details. So it might be a thing. You never know. Oh, and speaking of all those episodes being on YouTube, there has been a relaunch or a renaming of my YouTube channel. Of course, it was under my name for the longest time, and I got an email a few weeks back saying that I could choose a handle, so I chose Rusted Robot Toys because that's also my Etsy shop, which is, of course, all about my old action figures and other things that I'm trying to get rid of. I listed some Lego today. I listed some Mini-Mates. I listed some pop vinyl figures. I've listed Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. I'm just looking around here, random pop vinyl figures. There is a bunch of stuff on there, superhero things. So you might want to go check that out, Rusted Robot Toys on the Etsy shop. I'm running a 10% sale just in time for Christmas, which runs till I believe next Wednesday. So if you're listening to this in the week it's released, there's still time to get great savings. Speaking of that promo that I just played for that other podcast, December was the cutoff time for new promos. So we all did new promos for all of our podcasts on ESO. And I'm just going to go ahead and play the promo that I created for Soulforge just so you could hear it, because it's kind of fun and funky, and it actually matches up pretty well with the 2 promos for Cosmic Pizza and Epsilon 3. So here you go.
You know what now is a great time for?
A promo for Soulforge Podcast.
We talk about love,
loss,
tattoos,
Sex.
Dating.
Stupid things we do for love.
Pop culture.
Mental health.
We've had author interviews.
Adventures.
And shenanigans.
What?
Soulforge Podcast.
Where?
We're everywhere.
Soulforge Podcast. Subscribe today.
Forge your soul.
So wasn't that fun? And probably what I'll do at the end of this episode, after the end credits, is I will play the promo for Epsilon 3 and Cosmic Pizza just so you could hear what those are and see how fun and funky that is. So there you go. That's what's going on around here. So thinking about Rusted Robot Podcast, the fact that Kirstie Alley died, and I changed my Facebook profile picture to her face as her Star Trek character. That's something that we always talked about on the original Rusted Robot. That's how we would start with this week's celebrity deaths. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe it is time for a reboot, a relaunch of that podcast. Like I said, the Etsy shop is up and running. Been not doing brisk business, but making a few sales every week to help me with some Christmas money for gifts and stuff. And I just got Bishop a bunch of stuff, some Nintendo amiibos. I don't even know what they are, but he wants to collect them, so I got him some of those for his birthday. And you know what happened? Went to the Vintage Co-op here in Sault Ste. Marie on the weekend. It's just it's not exactly an antique mall, but kind of. It's a bunch of vendors in an old building, and they sell stuff on Saturdays and Sundays. And guess what I found? I found a vintage or antique hourglass. And for like 30 odd years, I've been thinking, I need to start a collection of hourglasses, but I've never done it. But this one was pretty spectacular. It was brass and it was a good size, and I think it's a 5-minute timer, and I just had to have it because it was like $8 or something. So now I have my first hourglass. Not that I need to start up another collection, especially considering I'm trying to get rid of a lot of my stuff, my own collection that I've been collecting, obviously, for about 35 years, and most of that stuff is going to be on the Etsy shop. I haven't put everything on there because that takes a lot of time and effort and energy, but there's a good amount of stuff on there. And so now I've got an hourglass, and maybe I'll be starting an hourglass collection, or maybe that'll be the only one that I have. I'm not really sure. So that is life in pop culture land. As for personal stuff, I've been looking for a massage therapist since I moved back to the Soo from Timmins about 8 months ago or so. And I was thinking about it because, my benefits at work cover it, so I might as well get a massage because it feels good. But then I was thinking and analyzing my body, doing a self-diagnostic. And when I lived in Timmins, I had so much back pain. My calves were always sore. My shoulders were always sore. And I didn't realize it, but since I've moved here, I don't have all of these weird phantom pains anymore. They're gone. And I was thinking about it, and it must be because in Timmins I was so unhappy and so stressed out that obviously that went to my body, and that's why I was always sore. Of course, all the 25,000 steps a day walking and carrying around flyers and parcels and all kinds of heavy stuff like that doesn't help. But I'm doing the same thing here, so why am I not as sore? It must be my environment. So that's something that I think people need to pay attention to. How do you feel from where you are? That's a huge factor, which I didn't realize until this past week or so. So yeah, I'm still going to look for a a masseuse, a registered massage therapist, whatever they're called, somebody to work out the kinks in my back and my legs, because it still feels good to get your body worked over. But anyway, that's about it. And other than that, winter is here in full force. I got my winter tires put on the other day, and the dealership not only put on the winter tires for me, but they also washed my car, which was pretty friggin' sweet and surprising, because back in Timmins, the dealership never did that, but the one here in the Soo does, so I like it. Overall, follow your dreams, people. I was so afraid to move back to the Soo, and everything has turned out great, so try it. You might like what you find. But I don't know how long this episode has gone for. It seems like it's very short, but that's pretty much it. That's all that's going on. I don't have any big life lessons for you this week or big major topics. Going to try to get some more guest hosts for the next few episodes and see what happens. Some new people on the show, maybe some returning characters. You never know what's going to happen. But I hope you'll stay tuned. I hope you'll share the podcast links with all of your friends, family, enemies, and anybody you can think of. Leave a review in the podcatcher of your choice. And until next time, remember, everywhere is walking distance if you've got the time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Soul Forge podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit soulforgepodcast.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Soul Forge podcast is your best source for living your best life.
Think about it.
It's time for a promo for the Epsilon 3 podcast.
The Epsilon 3? What do we talk about?
It's a Babylon 5 rewatch podcast.
Babylon 5? What's that?
It's the greatest 1990s sci-fi show in history.
How are we going to watch it?
With glee and excitement.
How would we rate those kind of episodes?
Out of jump gates.
How many jump gates?
Out of 5 jump gates.
Because it's Babylon 5.
That is correct. If you go to Zahadum, you will die. But you know what you won't do? You won't die listening to the Epsilon 3 podcast, right here on the ESO Network. You know what now's a good time for? It's time for a promo for the Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
The Cosmic Pizza Podcast, you say? That sounds delicious. What is that?
It's a delicious slice of life.
In every episode?
In every episode, where we talk about conspiracy theories,
cartoons of our childhood,
Star Trek quizzes,
movies that we've liked,
pod racing, general pop culture,
fantasy recasts.
But what we don't talk about is pizzas.
Right here on the ESO Network. You know what now is a great time for?
A promo for Soul Forge podcast.
We talk about love,
loss,
tattoos,
sex,
dating,
stupid things we do for love,
pop culture,
mental health.
We've had author interviews,
adventures,
and shenanigans.
What?
Soul Forge podcast.
Where?
We're everywhere.
Soul Forge podcast. Subscribe today.
Forge your soul.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.